Welcome to this sponsor spotlight live stream. I'm your host, John Sarianides, and tonight I'm joined by good friend of New England Football Journal, good friend of the New England Football Show, sponsors the New England Football Show, has now for the past 3 years, Herb Devine of Mortgage Right. Coach Devine, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too, John.
And, before we get started here and dive into, we're going to talk about a variety of topics. We're going to talk some football, some real estate, some mortgage industry. We want this to be informative. That's our number one goal here. We want to give Herb this platform here so that he can update us on what's going on in the real estate and mortgage industries, and to also give you guys some key information that you need if you are entering the real estate process. But before we do that, your Situate Sailors are off to a pretty good start here, 3-0. You guys had a big win last Thursday night over Norwell, 41-6. You have a bye week this week, I believe, correct?
We do. We're on a little bye week, refreshing the brains and the bodies. And next week we Friday night at Pembroke.
Yeah, and these bye weeks, it's interesting because you try to get used to it. I'm back now on the field coaching at King Philip. We have one next week, and it's like, it's nice, but at the same time, if you're playing well, you don't want to lose any of your momentum. You don't want to lose your mojo. So it's a balancing act. Bye weeks can be tricky because you want to give guys time to heal and relax, but at the same time, you want to get back to the fundamentals. You want to get back to doing more individual and focusing more on almost going back to training camp in a sense before you start prepping for an opponent.
Right. I mean, that's really what we did this week. We kind of did a Monday off. We did a Tuesday film session, came back Wednesday and Thursday and had like pretty intense practices. But really, when you're not game planning, it's like you said, you're doing more fundamental stuff, working on the little details. We did some, had the receivers working on doing a better job stock blocking down the field. Had the quarterbacks and the running backs getting back to the basics you ran in camp. And honestly, for me, it was kind of it helps the brain a little bit when you're not game planning, because you can run some, we put in some stuff that we've wanted to do, but just haven't had time to do it. And so we were able to kind of go over like, here, we're going to put a little scheme in that we want to, start to incorporate into the offense, but maybe not use it for the next couple of weeks, but gives us time to take a look at something that we wanted to do. And honestly, it was good for the kids because I think we try to have a little bit of fun with it, try to slow down the amount of, sometimes you're out there prepping an hour on defense, an hour on offense. We kind of chop those times down and just tried to have some fun with it, but also get some stuff done. That's what we told the kids. Like, we got to get some stuff accomplished. And I thought we did. Today was kind of a fun day because it was 70 degrees out there, pouring rain. And we were like, you know what? We're going to practice through this just in case. It's like the old Belichick, method of like, hey, we're going to practice in all the elements. And today was we took advantage of the pouring rain down in Situate, and to the quarterbacks and the running backs and receivers, you got to catch the ball. You got to make sure the transitions, the handoffs, the snaps, everything has got to be perfect in the wet weather. So it was fun, but I was pretty soaked to the bone, and we got at least we got something accomplished today.
Those rain practices, for what it's worth, get harder as you get older. I feel like when you're in your 20s, 30s, and even your 40s, you're like, oh, yeah, this is fun. We'll throw on the rain gear. We'll get out there for a couple of hours. It'll be good, like you said, to practice with a wet ball and handling various situations in the elements. But as you get older, man, you're like, all right, you know what? We got to do this. It's a part of the job. But get me in and get me out, because it just and that's just it. It was warm today, but as the season goes on here, October is very much like April. Weather-wise, these days are going to start getting shorter in terms of daylight, colder. You get those cold, rainy October days. The last thing you want to do is be out there getting soaked at a practice, even though you love the game and you need to be out there.
Oh, I agree with you. If it was below 60 degrees today or 55, we would have been, I'm like, all right, let's go. Get on the goal line. We're out of here. There was no chance we're going to be out there unless it was the weather.
You would have been checking to see if the gym's available.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to get your take on this because, I know I've talked to you in the past about the current state of affairs in high school football in Massachusetts and our current format. A lot of talk now, and we've got a lot coming up this offseason. that's going to determine the direction of the game in Massachusetts for the coming years. Of course, you got another realignment. We're 2 years into this current alignment. We're going to realign again in terms of divisions after this season. But the other big topic, of course, is the Connecticut plan and whether or not it's going to pass. And of course, if the Connecticut plan were to pass, it would mean a 10-week regular season. That would include Thanksgiving, built-in bye. And then it would mean a different format for the playoffs. You'd still have 8 divisions, but now instead of 16 teams qualifying for the playoffs in each division, only 8 would qualify. I've gotten a variety of opinions on this, Herb, throughout last offseason, throughout the summer. I'd love to get your take on it. Where do you stand on this proposed change? It does, I think a year ago, the consensus was it would be hard for it to pass. But from what I'm gathering, it seems like it's got some momentum at the administrative level, and there's a good chance it could potentially pass.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I mean, if you're deep in the playoffs in this format, where we have the 16 teams in the playoffs, you're playing that Saturday. Usually you're playing that Saturday or Friday night before Thanksgiving. So you got to go play Thanksgiving. To me, the hardest thing to do as a football coach is when you know you're going to be playing in the state final game and you have the tradition of Thanksgiving. What do you do as a coach? We always play. That's just what we do. But it's as much as I say we want to play, the kids are nervous. They're playing at a tentative pace. They're nervous. They're playing not to get hurt. And that's a problem. And I think having Thanksgiving being part of like kind of that final regular season where the playoffs start after that, I think is fair to the teams that have made it. And now Thanksgiving can be a real football game. Like I guess the format would be Tuesday after Thanksgiving. Saturday would be the semifinal, and then we'd all play. You know, who even knows if Gillette's going to allow Saturday games? It could be another Thursday, Friday, Saturday again. So the time, I don't think a kid or a coach that plays 3 games after Thanksgiving is going to worry about playing 3 games in 11 days. Like the dream of playing in the state final game is, it just matters more to me. I think the proposal makes the most sense. I think the state where we're in now, when you have 16 teams and you're going to play an 8-game schedule and you say you don't make the playoffs, so you lose in the first round of the playoffs, I'll be honest, I've been there before. That's a miserable experience. Like that 9th game when you're not in the playoffs, or that 9th week, to me, I don't think it's fair. Basketball doesn't do that. They play a 20-game regular season. Baseball doesn't do that. Every sport doesn't just shorten a season and play consolation games, where some teams are playing playoffs and some teams are playing consolation games. Every other sport, their season ends. If you're in the playoffs, you continue on. You lose, you're out. If you don't make the playoffs, your season's over. You turn in your equipment. I think football needs that, and I like this proposal the best. And let's be honest, if basketball coaches and wrestling coaches are upset because maybe there's a possibility that 2 or 3 of your kids aren't going to be there for a week of practice, it's like, come on. I mean, these kids are playing basketball 24/7, 365 now. It drives me crazy. The amount of ridicule we get with 7-on-7 and trying to do stuff for these kids, but basketball and soccer and baseball can go 365. I don't think it's fair to the football people. That's just my 2 cents. I just think it's on the right track. I think the hardest part has always been that Thanksgiving Day. You know, I know Massachusetts, we have that tradition. And I think, like you said, Connecticut starts their playoffs late. I mean, they're playing later than us, I believe. I believe they play into that week after December. You know better than I do, but I think
they start later.
I like this proposal.
They're only going into week 3 now. So their first game was the weekend of the 13th and 14th.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how we feel.
Yeah, no, I do too. And look, you know, it's interesting because I've gotten a diverse range of opinions. I've had a lot of Division I coaches tell me that they oppose it and are not going to vote for it because they feel, especially some of the bigger city schools in D1, feel that you already pretty much, most years, it's pretty much going to be locked down in D1 who's going to make the playoffs. So now you're competing, if you're lucky, for 2 or 3 spots in the playoff bracket. So their issue is going from 16 teams to 8 is going to limit the opportunity for some of those D1 city schools. I think that's valid. But my counter to that, and while I respect everybody's opinions on this, and I do think there is some validity to that, I won't argue that. I come back to what you just said, which is we're the only sport right now that doesn't play in Massachusetts a true regular season and then plays our tournament after the season. I just think that has been my issue for the longest time with this format, Herb, is the fact that you're asking these kids to play 7 and now 8 games, stop their season, play in the playoffs, then you lose, and now you got to go play a meaningless game against really what amounts to a faceless opponent, a school you have no connection to, just to play a game because they lost in the playoffs. Right. And then you play your Thanksgiving game. And then, of course, now you have a lot of schools are opting out of Week 10. They're not even playing games.
Right.
They're going right from Week 9 to Thanksgiving. I have a real problem with that. And I'll say this, too, and I know this has not been a popular opinion when I've said it, but I really firmly believe it. And I'm not saying this because I'm coaching in a school that has had success in recent years, but 16 teams is way too many teams making the playoffs. I know there are going to be years where good teams are going to be left out. But at the end of the day, if you play a good schedule, a strong schedule, if you build your program the right way, you're going to be able to compete for a playoff spot. And really, with any tournament, it's just about getting in, and then you take your chances from there. But this idea that 16 teams per division is good for the game, I don't buy that at all. I'm sorry. I just don't. I never have. I never will.
I agree with you. I think it's sometimes even the other sports, when you see 32 teams making the playoffs, and then there's, well, if you had a winning record, but you did this, and then
the
there's
Sullivan rule.
Yeah, there's like 34, 35, 36 teams, and it's like the 1 seed's playing the 36 seed, the 32 seed after the qualifier. It's like, that's an embarrassment of a game. How many 32s have even come close to beating a 1 in any sport? So I agree with you. I think that we're doing too much to like please everybody. You don't need 50% participation in playoffs. Back in the day, you had to win your league to even make a playoff, right? And then back even further than that, when I was in high school, it was the top 2 ranked teams, the power ranking out of 40 teams in your division. They were the only 2 teams that made the Super Bowl. So I think we've gone way past, I don't ever want to be, especially this year. I hope we're not down the road. If that happens and there's only 8 teams and you're a 9 seed, then I'd be, putting my foot in my mouth. But I definitely think you're right. It's 16 teams is too much, especially if we only have 34 teams in a division.
And especially because, you'll have those divisions where good teams may be left out. But you're also going to have divisions where you're going to have lopsided matchups in the first round, where you have a 16 seed that is completely overmatched against a 1 seed, and you're asking them to go play that game, get kicked around, and then they got to still go play another 2 games before they even play Thanksgiving. So, and 2 meaningless games, really. I mean, my biggest issue with this current format and even the previous format was the consolation round. I can't stand it. I think it diminishes the importance of the games, and I don't think that's fair to the kids and the programs. And look, for all the people out there that want to see Thanksgiving go away and think that Thanksgiving's the problem, I got news for you. It's not going away. It's not.
No.
Good luck telling Swampscott, Marblehead, or Needham Wellesley or some of these other rivalry games that they can't play. It's not going to happen. They're going to play. They should play. Yeah. It's the biggest regular season game of the year in any sport in high school in this state.
Right.
Okay.
I agree.
It should be played. And it would be nice to get back to a place where the game means something, where there could be conference titles at stake. There could be playoff berths at stake. It would make it even more exciting. And I don't want to hear this argument about playing after, the first weekend in December and what does it mean to these other sports. These other sports, first of all, winter's the longest season of the 3. I think that those winter coaches will be okay if for 2 or 4 practices, a couple of their kids aren't there because they're playing for a state title. You should appreciate that. And the other thing to this for me is spring season starts too early as it is. I mean, there are years you can't get outside. It's been good of late, but I used to coach lacrosse. There are years you couldn't get outside. until first week in April. They could most of them would rather start a week later. So I think it's something that the coaches association and the coaches in general should get behind, because I think it's a sensible proposal.
It is. I agree. I think it's a good proposal. I'm on board with it, and I think all my coaches, we feel the same way. It definitely, like you said, Thanksgiving should matter. And you know, just locally, like think about the Duxbury Marshfield team, those games.
Oh,
I mean, they've been playing for a league title on Thanksgiving, but they're also both going to a Super Bowl. So, you know, if the rankings mean something, like we play him, it's we would want it to mean something more than just, oh, we want to survive this game, but we got to play because it's the tradition of Thanksgiving. You don't want to offend the alumni, or you know, you just want the kids to appreciate that you're playing a football game. It's
mhm.
competition, but you also want it to mean something, not just survive the game because you got another game down the road.
Yeah.
You know, and I
No,
think that's
I agree
important.
wholeheartedly. I do, and I do understand where a lot of these D1 coaches are coming from. You know, some of them are friends of mine, and I understand that, and I think it's a valid argument, and it's certainly something that is worth exploring. But we need. I feel that if we do this, we may finally have a system that can last. So that I feel like in football, I've been coaching 30 years. We've had 5 or 6 different systems in that span. So it would be nice if you had something consistent that can be your system year in and year out, like it is in other sports. You are watching a sponsor spotlight here. I'm joined by Herb Devine from Mortgage Right. Coach Devine is the head football coach at Scituate High School, and he's the owner of Mortgage Right Scituate. He has over 27 years of experience in the mortgage industry, and he is someone who not only has the experience, but he has seen it all in the real estate market, the ebbs and the flows, and somehow he has navigated that process. And when you enter the process, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, and I'm a licensed realtor myself, I've been in the business for 9 years now. When you enter the market, especially as a first-time home buyer, you need people like Herb to be there for you, to help you with that process, especially trying to figure out what kind of program you can get into, what you can afford, what you can't afford. How does the process work in terms of the paperwork and what you need to bring to the table financially? It's a lot. And I think, Herb, we're living in a world now in real estate where there's so much going on now. I mean, you're seeing the changes now with the buyer agent relationship and the seller buyer agent relationship. And so much is changing that if you don't have an agent and you don't have someone like yourself with your experience in your corner to help you navigate through the mortgage process, it's hard. It's hard. And people will say that I'm overstating it. I'm not, especially for first time home buyers. It's hard.
I agree. I mean, right now in this market, there's a little bit better, I mean, rate environment that we've obviously experienced in the last 3 weeks. So we're starting to see more activity with refis, and but somebody getting pre-approved now, you have to have somebody in your corner that when I just had a deal that was an FHA deal, 3.5% down. The seller didn't want to fix some things that needed to be fixed in the house. The buyer's agent really didn't know how to get involved because the seller and the seller's agent wouldn't do it. So I tried to help out, got a contractor that was a buddy of mine, hooked up with the buyer, went into the property, fixed what they had to fix, hooked up the bathroom. You know, obviously the buyer paid, but I have contacts that can help deals get done, and that's one thing that last deal probably 2 weeks ago. You know, having a contractor that I can call that was local that could go in, put install the actual it was the sink was not attached and baseboard had to be put in, sheetrocked. So that's just like little scenarios like that right there for first time home buyers, people that don't know. And right now it's a tricky market because it is kind of a seller's market still. And if the seller's not willing to budge and the buyer has to get some things done on their own, well, you need to have, some people on your side that can get things done. And that's really what we've always done. What I've always done as a mortgage person is try to make sure that my clients are taken care of. I'm not just their mortgage guy. I'm advising them on insurance. And if you need a landscaper, a plumber, an electrician, I have some people that I try to help those clients out with. So coming into a new property or a new location all over the South Shore of Massachusetts, I have contacts everywhere. And those little things like there kind of add up to help a client feel comfortable about buying a home in this market, because it is a little trickier. There's, like you said, a little earlier, the inventory is still not where we need it to be to make the competition. We need more inventory so prices will start to come down. And if we can get some of the prices to come down, we're going to hopefully continue to see the rates. We last week, the FHA rate got down to 5.25. We were able to lock some people in at 5.25, 5.375, 5.5. It's crept up just a little bit, and conventional has gotten back down to 6%, 6.125. So that's a point and a half in about 3 months. So we're starting to see the rates get down. Obviously, the Fed's talking about continuing to drop the federal funds rate, which is going to help navigate rates even lower. And with that happening, I think supply is going to start to pick up. And it's our process is as fast as I can text you in 30 seconds. The mortgage app, you can get it, you download it, fill out an application in 5 minutes. We can have you pre-approved in 10 minutes. So it's a super fast process. And that's kind of what Mortgage Right does in my company and my team. We've been doing it for a long time. So we're there to help people feel comfortable with the whole process and answer any question, not just financial or payment or what are my closing costs. We help them out with so many different things.
Yeah, and you just said something that I think is so telling about the world we're living in today. And the last time I had you on in the spring, we talked about this too, about how gone are the days where it's a process, if you will. Like you just said, as long as you have your ducks in a row, I mean, your application can be done in 10 minutes. And now you have that pre-approval, you're armed with that pre-approval. Now okay, these are the markets I can look in. This is the price range I can afford. Now you can navigate through it at least. And that's it. And I don't want to sound like, I'm making it sound like a year or two ago it used to be this arduous process, because the process has been streamlined the last few years. But that's so important now that literally if you make the decision that, hey, we want to buy, it's so important now that it's an expedited process and you can start it faster than you used to be able to.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, just being on my phone, I have the mortgage app. If somebody calls me on a Friday night, right, a Saturday afternoon, a Sunday, and they don't have the ability to get to a laptop, they're out looking at a home, I can just text them the app. They do everything while they're driving from house to house. Realtors love it because they see, wow, you can do this right from the phone. They put all the information in. They can even grab their W-2s, driver's license, upload it right through their phone, and I can have a pre-approval. It comes all right into my system. And the convenience of that helps realtors, helps clients say,
Oh, huge.
look, I'm ready in the morning to wait for the bank to open. And then maybe the loan officer is going to call me back by noon after their lunch break. So, we're a little different world where we're always active. It's like we're 24/7, 365. So that's why we're pretty busy when it comes to helping clients on the weekends. I mean, I'd love it to be busier, to be honest with you, because it's gotten so easy to do more pre-approvals on the weekends. But for the most part, we're the process, the technology has just kind of risen above where we used to be. The old days of
And
dropping your
obviously, I
W-2s in the
think
mailbox and we'll come pick it up.
right. It is. It's a different world. And and I thought you hit the nail on the head, Herb. I mean, I think we do need to see more properties hit the market here, because I do think that will generate more competition and it will lead to prices dropping. We do need to see a shift from a seller's market, which it's really been the last 5 years, to a buyer's market. I think the perception was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that with rates going up post-COVID, that you were going to start to see that shift, that it was going to start to become a buyer's market again. But that's not the case. It's still a seller's market. And based on the way things are looking right now from a realtor standpoint, it's probably going to stay that way through the rest of this year and early into next year. But one of the number one questions I get from people that ask me about properties or the real estate market and whatnot is rates. And what, in your estimation, can we expect? Of course, you got the election coming up in November. that's going to play a role in terms of what happens with rates. But what can we expect as we get to the end of 2024 and into 2025 when it comes to interest rates?
I think interest rates are going to stay steady where they are right now until we're going to stay steady probably through Q4 here. I don't see rates. You're not going to see like another, the next Fed rate cut that happens. We're gonna drop rates, right? So they're going to drop the prime rate. They're going to drop the federal funds rate. Mortgage rates, I believe, are going to stay pretty consistent through the end of this year. I think you're going to start to see next year to see rates probably get into the consistent high, mid fives to low fives in the conventional market. I don't think it's going to happen before the election. I think it's going to happen post election. So that's kind of some of the people that we follow, the financial gurus, the bond, the yield people. We're going to see probably a consistent level, the end of this year. But I really think next year by the spring market, we might see rates start, conventional rates get into the mid fives, if not the low fives.
Yeah, and of course, I get asked all the time, are we going to see them in the twos and even threes again? And
That's
not
not
anytime. Yeah, it's not going to happen. Right. And my answer to that question every time is not anytime soon. But I really genuinely don't know if we're going to see it
right.
again.
I would agree with you. We don't know, but I think I could see rates getting into the low fours, even the high threes, a year from now, a year and a half from now, because there's so much, there's a different amount of, when we follow the bonds and the yields, the spread, it's the 2-year spread between the bump markets that we follow has talked about there's too much of a spread. So rates should be a lot lower than they are right now, but they're holding back. They don't want to see the gates wide open with everybody trying to refinance. If they drop rates down to 5.25% for conventional tomorrow, you're going to have a whole ton of people trying to refinance these mortgages they just took. So the banks would lose so much money on that turnover. So it's going to be a gradual process. I know rates went from, we're at 4.75. They did go down to 2.75, but we were in a global pandemic. It was a little different, trying to like feed money into the market. That's not happening anytime soon, knock on wood. But I think it's going to be a gradual process back down towards the low fours, but that could take 2 years, 18 months. It's going to come, but it's not going to come quick. That's my two
No, and
cents.
I think, and you just said something that I think is so important for people to understand, which is, especially if they've been living in their house 3 to 6 months, the bank isn't going to lose money on a refi here. They have to make their money too. And I think that people do tend to forget that. And look, I get it. You want to save money on your mortgage every month, and you want to be able to potentially make that extra payment if you can. But I mean, again, it's going to be a process. They will go down. I don't see them going into the twos because I mean, there is that was rare. It's not something that we've seen very often in the history of the real estate market in this country. So I do think that it's important for people to recognize that while rates are probably going to steadily go down, it's going to be a process. It's not going to happen overnight. As far as I want to come back to first-time home buyers, because I'm always interested to see if any new programs have come up in the last few weeks or last few months. But where are we at program wise for first time home buyers and helping them get into their first home?
I think the most attractive right now, to be honest with you, I mean, I know there's mass housing that people love, but it's a short window. You have to have a specific amount of income, and really the property values are so high right now for someone to qualify for mass housing. So I've been really pricing out the difference between FHA and a conventional with 3% down. FHA rates are so much better right now for clients. I mean, we're able to do a 3.5% down purchase, really probably 5.75. I would say that would be the ballpark, where that same person buying, if they wanted to get the difference of 3% down conventional, is in that 6.75, 6.875 range. The FHA PMI is actually cheaper. So it's almost cheaper by $100 right now. The only con to doing an FHA is you do have to pay a mortgage insurance premium to the FHA. So they do charge a 1.75 fee that is financed on your loan amount. It's not out of pocket. So FHA has been actually more attractive for first-time homebuyers who want to put the least amount of money down they can. There's obviously VA loans where you can do 100% financing if you're a veteran. USDA is really kind of zip code specific, where you can also do 100% financing. So their conventional has a 3% down. The conventional Fannie Freddie rates aren't as good as the FHA right now. So I've been really pricing out more FHA loans for first time home buyers. And the great thing about doing an FHA loan is, say for instance, you're at 6.75, and then 6 months, say 8 months from now, rates are down to 5.5. Well, you can do an FHA streamline refi, no appraisal, no income, just run your credit, you sign the paperwork, and we can get you closed in like 2 weeks. So the FHA streamline allows you to drop as the rates drop without going through an appraisal process, without getting all the documents done again. So that's a program that to me has gotten much better over the last 18 months. FHA, the PMI was really high for a while, and they've tried to reduce that almost in half. And conventional has almost gone the opposite, where if you have great credit, the rates are still high, and the PMI has gotten a little higher with 3% and 5% down. So I've been doing more FHA, but each customer's situation is completely different.
And for our viewers out there, just if you could give a brief explanation of the mass housing program. It's basically you have to make a certain amount of money per year in order to qualify, and then there's certain properties that they identify as properties that you can purchase in certain communities. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, the mass housing, it's the opposite, where you can't make more than a certain amount of money. So there's an income restriction depending on what county you live in. So if you make too much money, you can't do a mass housing deal. But they do allow 3% down. And then there's also some programs like in the inner city, different places where they'll allow you to actually finance that 3% down as well. So you can kind of get a down payment assistance program. Believe it or not, I haven't done too many of them the last probably 12 months because the money kind of runs out quick. And it's been one of those things where people have applied for it, and then we can't get the down payment assistance in time. So it's been a little bit of a tricky deal. That's why I've felt like I've been doing more conventional, more FHA because of that.
Right. And I think that being informed is important, but unfortunately, a program like that isn't going to apply to most people. So now, to your point, you have to start looking at FHA loans, and you're going to get the lower rate there, and the VA loan, of course, if you're a veteran. I mean, that's a tremendous program. USDA, like you said, it's zip code specific. There's certain communities that it'll apply, and there are others that it won't. But there are programs out there. But I still think it comes down to getting pre-approved, being smart about what you can afford, having some money saved up for that down payment, and having a plan. Because again, oftentimes people go into this process thinking we can do this, we're ready. And then when they get into the nitty gritty and they start looking at the numbers, all of a sudden they get a reality slap, and it's whoa, wait. Oh man, I don't know. Maybe we might have to start looking at this price range. And I think the other thing too that complicates it, Herb, is that the buyer agent buyer relationship has now changed. I mean, probably about 25 to 30% of the properties that are on the market right now in Massachusetts are not offering buyer agent compensation. So now the buyer's agent has to sit down with his clients or her clients and say, hey, this is what it's going to cost to do business with me. Right. That affects buyers too now, because in many ways you have to come with more money at the table now.
Right. And I think you're right. I think that's a hard conversation for some buyers agents to have, because they've never had to do that. It's always been, hey, the seller pays for my commission, so don't worry about it. I'll take you wherever you want to go. But now the buyers know that, most buyers know that if they have that, the buyer's agent has to have that conversation with the buyer. Like, if I'm going to go show you around, here's my contract. Let's make sure we're on the same page here. And maybe I can get the seller to pay it, but there's no guarantee anymore, because you have listing agents that know the game and they want to get the listing. So they're going to tell the client that maybe we'll talk about this and see what the offer is like before we agree to paying a buyer's agent. So it's a different game now. It definitely is.
It is a different game. And I think the other thing that complicates the game is brokers are not going to be satisfied with their buyer's agents coming back and saying, I took 2.5% from my client. They're going to push your value, your worth, presenting your value and your worth, and they're going to expect you to get more than 2.5%. They're going to want you to get 5 to 10%. And honestly, I scoff at that because for me, I don't think that's realistic, especially with young couples, first-time home buyers, to ask them to come up with an additional 2.5 to possibly 7.5% more just to pay the buyer's agent. I don't think it's going to happen. And unfortunately, Herb, I think you're going to see a lot of scenarios where they're going to go to the listing agent and they're going to say, hey, if we give you $2,500 or $3,000, can you write the offer for us? Which is a bad idea, and it's a dangerous practice because the listing agent's fiduciary responsibility is to the seller, not the buyer. Yep. So if there's any flaws with that property, they're not going to tell you because their responsibility is to their client. They're just doing you a favor because you're paying them. So, people really, I still say it, as on the buy side, you still need an agent. You still need to work with an agent, particularly if this is your first rodeo, because if you don't, it could be a really, really difficult process. Herb, before we go here, I just want to, let our viewing audience know how they can get in touch with you. Of course, every week on the New England Football Show, I give out your number. I've had people tell me that they watch the show every week and they can recite your cell phone number. They can recite your cell phone number by heart. I'm like, that's great. Put it to use when you're ready.
Let's go. Give me a call.
Right. But how can they get in touch with you and your team? Because, again, your experience, your knowledge, your know-how in this business, it's second to none.
Yeah, my email address that you always put out there for us, and we appreciate that. It's herb@mortgageright, RIGHT.com. You can email me or you can call me, text me on my cell number, 781-254-2846. My office is at 33 Front Street in Scituate, right in the harbor. If you ever want to stop by, feel free. But, we'd love to help out coaches, college coaches, pro coaches, high school coaches, assistant coaches, trainers, athletic directors. We love helping out the coaches and teacher community. So your show does a great job of promoting us, and we appreciate your sponsorship and all those Monday night advertisements I get to hear and show my kids. So they think I'm cool because I'm on a radio show. So but no, I appreciate it, and that's how you get us.
No, well, we appreciate you, Herb, and I got to tell you, there's no substitute for experience in this process, folks. I'm serious when I say it. It's about the relationship and the experience. You want to work with people that you're comfortable with, that have your best interests in mind, and that are going to guide you to the finish line and help you make that purchase. But it's also important to have people in your corner that know what they're doing, because like Herb said earlier, situations are going to come up. And you want to have people in your corner that have been around for a long time, that know people, that have connections, and that those connections can get things done. Because you're looking at at minimum a 21-day process, realistically 30, could be as long as 45, depending on the structure of the contract and whether or not that the seller has to move into a certain property by a certain date. But regardless of what the setup is, you need people that are going to help you get to the finish line and finish it. I say it all the time. No deal is done until you're at the closing table. If you have the right people in your corner, people like Herb, that deal is going to get done. So, again, please feel free to reach out to Herb. As he mentioned, you can call him at 781-254-2846 or shoot him an email at herb@mortgageright.com. He and his team are available to help you anytime. Like he said, nights and weekends. I've often wanted to put that to the test on a Friday night at around 7:30, 7:45.
Halftime. I'll call you back at halftime. John, you need a
pre-approval?
approval?
That's what I was going to say.
I'll send you the app at halftime. It'll be quick.
Yeah, I was going to say you would. I mean, and it's not, I've known you long enough that at halftime, you're going to either send the app or you're going to return the call or the text. But Herb, it's great talking with you, brother. I really enjoy doing these spotlights with you. It's great to talk football. It's great to talk real estate, two things that I'm really passionate about. It's great to talk about the mortgage industry, and you make me sound smarter because I suck at math, and you're so good with the numbers and how the everything works with the rates. It's fantastic stuff and it's helpful stuff for our viewers. Real quick before we go, care to forecast what the hope is here for the Situate Sailors for the remainder of this football season?
I mean, I think for us, it's like we're feeling good about our team. I love the way our defense is playing. I think we're playing offensively. Our quarterback's starting to kind of get a feel for the games. We're feeling good. I mean, I think we got a tough division that we're going to see. We're playing a couple of now that we get through the non-league, we're getting into our league schedule: Pembroke, Hanover, Plymouth South, North Quincy, and Quincy. So we're gonna have some big games coming up. But I like our kids. We got an experienced bunch. They play tough, they play physical, and they're playing smart football. We preach not turning the ball over, and I think that's what it's going to take, as you know, getting into the playoffs and playing good defense and taking care of the ball. That's what it's about. And if you can, get the offense clicking, then that's going to get you on a run. So, I like our chances, but again, as the old coach talk, it's week to week, game to game, quarter to quarter, play to play. Just got to keep playing the next play, and that's what we do, and we'll see how we end up down the road.
Well, you've done a tremendous job turning that program into a consistent contender year in and year out. I mean, it's impressive what you've done there since you've taken over, Coach. I can't say it enough that you have built that program now into a program that people expect to be in the mix on a yearly basis, and I think that's a testament to you, your staff, the hard work you guys have put in, the hard work, of course, the kids have put in, and the support of their parents and the administration. I think that you've got it going now, and you guys are going to be in it year in and year out. And again, testament to you and the job you guys have done there.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Like you said, you're only as good as your coaching staff and your players that work hard, and the parents and the administrators. Everybody's been, kind of pulling the same rope. So that's what we need around here is to keep that rolling. And I think our kids they work hard. And they're good kids. They want to be coached. They're coachable, and that's been a joy for us with this group. They want to learn and they want to get better, and they want to win football games.
Yeah, absolutely. Any tips for us tomorrow night? We got Foxborough. We're expecting a fist fight in a phone booth like we do every year. Any tips for us to help us against the Warriors?
Stop that buck sweep. Quarterback's pretty good, and they're coming. Put it that way. Tell your quarterback they're coming. They're blitzing.
Yeah, no, they always do. They always do. Jack Martinelli, Brian Martinelli, they do a great job there defensively and offensively. They got some kids that can hurt you. They've got some home run potential. So it'll definitely be a typical KP Foxborough battle. As I tell people, it's a rock fight every year. Yeah. So we expect nothing less. But Herb, great to see you, my friend. Let's do this again here soon, and we'll talk football and real estate again down the road.
Sounds good, John. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck
all right.
Too.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, that is Herb Devine from Mortgage Right. That'll do it for the sponsor spotlight. For Herb Devine, I'm John Cernitas. Till next time.